Braveheart Workshops is hosting a virtual online event, creating hope, health, and healing in 2021. Transformation through empowerment and connection. Embrace the truth that you are loved and matter. Join us on Friday, March 12, 2021 from 1 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. During this time of uncertainty, find ways to manage stress, balance your emotions, replenish your energy, promote well-being for yourself and loved ones. Take time to pray and meditate. Give purpose to what you want to achieve in your life pertaining to hope, health, and healing. Join us as our speakers share their stories. Our lineup of speakers include Jill Reynolds, the founder of Braveheart Workshops and our event host. Dr. Laura Wood, our keynote speaker, speaking on embodiment. Krista Alicia, our special guest speaker. Patricia Rogers, Dr. Susie Warden, Alana De La Cruz, Heidi Salzberg-Wild, and Tanya Gibson. The event will be recorded live. After the event, you will receive the recording by email. If you can't attend, you could watch it anytime. Your investment is only $28.99, so please register now. Go to braveheartworkshops.com. The event again is March 12th, 2021 from 1 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please go to braveheartworkshops.com and register today. The Connection Show, creating hope, health, and healing in 2021, sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today from New Mexico is Angela Legh. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Thank you so much, Jill. I'm so excited to be here talking with you and with your audience, and I just hope that the information and messages we bring to them are inspirational.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd love the audience to know just a little bit more about who you are. Angela Legh grew up with an abusive, alcoholic dad and an angelic mother. Despite her mother's efforts, Angela learned not to value herself. She married an older man who began to control and emotionally abuse her. Having no self-esteem, she allowed this behavior to continue. Angela stayed in the marriage because she put his needs ahead of hers. She feels everyone deserves someone to love them. It took a terrible wildfire in her community in California and the destruction of her home to cause her to evaluate her relationship and her life and ask if this is the way she wanted to live the rest of her life. The answer was no. Angela left that marriage, quit her government job, and she moved to England, where she began writing fairy tales for kids aged 8 through 11. While writing, she became aware she was building an emotional intelligence and conscious awareness into her stories. Her goal is to have children learn to value themselves so they will not allow abusive relationships in their lives. Angela is gifting 150,000 copies of her first children's book, Bella Santini and the Land of Everlasting Change, to kids suffering emotional instability due to COVID-19 lockdown. Well, what a beautiful woman you are in writing for children. So welcome to the show, Angela. And what I love to do, Angela, on the Connection Show, I believe, just like story that you write, that story impacts our entire lives. And story through the impacting of our lives, can impact another one's life too when we share. So, on the connection show, I love to connect dots and take audiences and speakers back into those days growing up. So, if you're willing to be transparent, could you take us to those days growing up in the household you were and
Mhm.
how that impacted your life to bring you to where you are today?
You know, it's interesting. My earliest memory, I must have been 1 or 2 years old. I remember my dad, in a rage, picking my mother up and pretending he was going to throw her out the window. We lived on the second story of a flat in San Francisco. And I remember being so frightened. Um, she was our rock. She was our stability. And um, I don't know if, it's such a young memory. I don't know if it's real or not, but that really describes kind of just the energy that my father brought into the family. He wasn't always, he was a very injured man, and we hear hurt people, and that is so very true. Um, I firmly believe that everyone is born innocent and pure, with a pure heart and pure love. And it is through the lessons they learn, whether it's from family or at school or society in general, they may learn control is the way, and it comes from a place of fear, of I fear that if I can't control you, I won't have control. I need control to keep my life the way I want it to be.
Well, anger really is either fear or sadness trying to get out. It's one or
Absolutely.
the other. And I believe, Angela, I really do now believe because I've done a lot of my own personal reflections and work and in the last 5 years with internal family systems. And I really believe that at the moment of conception in the womb, the child takes on parts, and the parts could be that of being wanted and loved in the womb, or it could be a part that comes into that child in the womb of you're not wanted and I wished I wouldn't have gotten pregnant with you. And so once that baby starts to come through the womb, immediately it comes into the world with the part of abandonment when they cut the umbilical cord, the part of anger when it gets slapped on the butt and starts crying,
How
desertion.
barbaric is that?
Yeah, yeah, desertion from the mother, So, we wonder, when people start to take on identities as little children, where does all of these different personalities, and like you said with your dad, come from? Well, the moment it comes through the womb, it's already taken on. So, yeah, I believe they're innocent, but I also believe all these parts come in the moment they're conceived into the
you know,
part. Yeah.
yeah. I'm writing a parent's guide to my Bella Santini series, and yesterday I was writing about bullying, and I wrote, that I believe kids are born innocent, and then I realized when I'm saying this, a parent may read it and think, well, I didn't abuse my kid, but he turned out a bully. And I think that what you're talking about, some of these other energies that come in through the womb, and I would even venture a little bit further, because I believe in soul contracts. I believe that two souls in heaven will agree to act out parts, and I believe that my ex and I had a soul contract. His part was to be the injured, um, controlling one, and my part was to be the empath, try to fix, rescue, savior one. And neither role is good and healthy.
Well,
Um,
and even a step further, I've done a lot of, like, when I was doing some group therapy years and years ago, Angela, one of the things I learned, I mean, the Bible's really clear that when God joins a husband and wife together in holy matrimony, and if again, not we don't always live in the perfect world that we wait until marriage, but if we do wait till marriage and we have sex within the bonds of marriage, and we the marriage then forms with holy matrimony and the sexual intimacy at the time of marriage. At that time, there's two souls kind of come together because they're interacting under God with this holy matrimony. And so when I did this really intensive therapy back, oh gosh, in the late 80s, early 90s, I literally had there was like 12 people in the room, and we handed each one of them a stuffed animal, and I literally had to go to each one because I'm a recovered addict and was promiscuous in those days. So I had to go around the room and retrieve my soul from each person, naming a man that I might have slept with, and say, I want, Bob, I
mm,
want my soul back. Michael, I want my soul back, and retrieving, because by having that sexual intimacy and my soul being kind of all split up, I wanted to retrieve it so that it was mine, so that I could utilize it when I got married instead of having it spread out all over the place. And so I believe that, we need our soul retrieved to us. It belongs to us unless we share it with a special person.
and I think, in my marriage, when I talk about having um, let go of who I am, what that I think what that means is I was ignoring, abandoning my soul, and letting myself just become subordinate and not speaking my truth. Now, I learned in the marriage not to speak my truth, because it didn't always work out well.
But then again, if you take that back, even going back to scripture, Angela, the Bible's real clear that we'll have four generations of sin passed on from our forefathers. So if you go back to this little girl, little Angela, growing up in this abusive home,
Mm-hmm.
and then you maybe take that back to your father, maybe being brought up in an abusive home, and then his father going to great grandfather and then great grandfather. So when you take it back, legacies back, the burdens back to
Mm-hmm.
being abused or alcoholic or whatever it might be, anger, you take those legacies back. When you do what's called ancestral legacy burn, you bring them
Mm-hmm.
back generationally, then when you're able to go inside and go all the way back to when the burden started, then you can release that burden back ancestrally and then come forward with blessings. So you can take all that anger back and then come forward with truth of peace and serenity that you bring into your great grandfather. Then you ask your grandfather to be filled with peace and serenity. You give your father the blessing of peace and serenity, and then you bring peace and joy and serenity into Angela. So you take the burden away and then you bring back the blessing.
That is very similar to what I did, which was Ho'oponopono. Once I left the marriage, I learned about the Hawaiian practice of Ho'oponopono, and it's a very powerful prayer about releasing. It's about righting the wrongs and
Hmm.
releasing the energy back ancestrally and then forward.
Hmm.
And doing Ho'oponopono for me was really about, it turned out, I thought I was doing it for others, but it turned out that it was like the saving grace for me.
Mhm.
And it's such a simple, the new age version of Ho'oponopono is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And when I've talked about this with people, I've had some really recoil from that. How can I ask them to forgive me? They're the ones that hurt me. And while I understand that reaction, because that's the reaction I would have had 3 years ago, I also know that through the interactions that we have, when when we are triggered by something someone says, there's a part of us that is reactive to what they're saying, and that is evidence of an inner wound that when someone triggers us, they're basically being a mirror showing us ourselves and where our wound is.
Mhm.
And so,
And you can never see in someone else what's not in yourself. It's
very
that
true.
and that
Yes.
goes for negative things in life and positive. Like if I were to look at you and say, which I did at the beginning, so I guess I'll just do my own mirror, and I said, "You gosh, you're just a beautiful person, Angela. I can't see your beauty unless I have beauty in myself. If I see
Yes.
your beauty, it's a reflection that I can see my own beauty. And if I see your fear, it's because it's a reflection I see my own fear. And I
Yes.
believe God gave us each other for reflection. That's why He created man and woman, and we recreated. And, why were there just animals at the beginning of time before man and woman? And he created us to mirror each other and to help each other's journey along the way. And,
And the journey is to getting to the point of Christ-like love,
mhm,
where we can't, you know, it, 3 years ago I never would have been able to say, but what I can say today, looking back at my ex-husband, I believe that his soul was so much stronger than mine, so much bigger than mine, because he took on so much pain in his life to play the role that he played.
mhm.
And when I can see that divinity within someone who I used to perceive as doing things to me, I know I've stepped out of victim energy.
Mhm.
And I think the purpose of for all of us is to try and reach that point, not of being Christ, but embracing that love, that love that is so much more than romantic love.
Mhm.
It's so much more than even mother child, father child love. It is unconditional and seeing the person just as they are and loving them.
Well, and even on an add-on to that, because I there's wonderful woman. I'll have to send you her link, Angela. Her name is Connie Witter, and she's out of Oklahoma, and she's got a ministry called Because of Jesus, and
Mm-hmm.
she's written about at least 20 books, and she's amazing. But I heard her in Branson last year, and I never really grasped this before, but I think this resonates from what you said. She said, because of Jesus dying on the cross and giving us eternal life and inviting him into our heart to reside inside of us as our Lord and Savior, because of that, she said, and when he died and he resurrected, we then are resurrected in him. And so I never thought of that we are already resurrected. And if we're already resurrected and he lives in us, we've already been given the gift of love and joy and forgiveness and non-judgment and all the things that Christ has in him is in us.
Yes,
We
and
just need to slow it down enough to tap into our resurrection self.
well, it's about getting out of our head and into our heart.
Hmm. And our soul,
And
getting into that spirit, getting to
yeah.
that spirit place. So transitioning then, so when you went through, and the other thing too, when you were talking about this prayer of forgiveness, in AA they talk about that, when you work your steps, you get to a place where you need to make amends to those we've injured. And I'll never forget this, Angela. My mother was a narcissist, borderline personality,
Mm.
um, emotional
Huh.
abuser.
I would recognize her behavior.
Oh yeah, I lived with her, and so she was extraordinarily emotionally abusive, and I was her target. I was the middle child, and she targeted me. And so as a little girl, I was the lost child until at 14. And then all of a sudden, after a date rape, I came out like a bull in a china store.
Mm.
And her and I would chase around the dining room tables, throwing things and swearing the most vile words at each other, the F word, and
Mm.
just, I mean, literal rage at each other. And then throughout my life, from that time on, I acted out in many inappropriate ways. So when I got clean and sober and did my 12, I was working my steps. I sat with my mother one day on my patio. I'll never forget this, to do my amends and tell my mom how sorry I was when I left home and hitchhiked around the United States and would only call home once a month. And one time I left my purse in one of the cars, and they returned it. And my mother didn't know if I was on the side of the road dead because I only called home
Oh
once a month.
gosh.
And
Mm.
just all the things that I did. And me then, now being a mother, I looked back and went, wow, that was crazy. Like what you did to your mom. So when I was doing my amends, like you were talking about the forgiveness, and I was saying, Mom, I'm sorry when I did this. Mom, I'm sorry when I did this and how it must have. And I just like an hour worth of, Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I'm sorry. And asking for forgiveness. This was so funny, Angela. At the end or through it, she goes, well, I'm so glad you finally realized what a good mother I was. And I was so healthy at that point. I stopped her and said, Mom, this isn't about you. This is about me telling you I'm sorry for what I've done. So I stopped her because I wasn't going to give her the justification she was a good mother, because she was a horrible mother. But I wasn't going to stop my amends in order to be sidetracked from her hijacking them back into herself. So again, when you're doing
Yeah.
your
So you
forgiveness,
that
don't get hijacked back or looped back into the person thinking that you're saying you're sorry so that they can get off the hook.
well, and it's interesting because one of the things that your story brings up is setting boundaries. Because what you ended up doing is setting a boundary. A lot of times when we're in those abusive, especially with emotionally abusive, now I haven't really experienced physical abuse, so I can't speak to that. But I do know with emotional abuse, when you're in the situation, when you're constantly being picked at by that other person, um, it's really hard to rise out of that victim energy. And for me, I had to leave. I couldn't, I didn't feel like I could set boundaries. I didn't even know what boundaries were at that point. um, but I had to get out of the situation, and it took me at least 6 months to a year before I could start seeing the roles or his divinity and being able to truly see it for what it was, a gift, a hard to live through gift that made me who I am, and brought me the learning that I needed to write these books that teach not only little girls, because I don't want any little girl to grow up and choose into that kind of relationship, but also little boys, because
Hmm.
they can be abused too.
Hmm.
And
Well, and
so,
there's a lot of abuse, a lot. I did lots of recovery and eating disorder treatment, and Angela, there are so many men that stay stuck in a closet from their trauma, from
yeah,
sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and yeah, and then get the disease of the eating disorder. So I think addressing the young boys too is so important.
there is no gender
Mm-mm,
associated with abuse,
mm-mm.
and on the on the give or the receive side either. And so, yeah, my books are really about teaching children of, I call it their inner magic, and the inner magic that we all have, that many of us as we get to adulthood lose, is love and curiosity and playfulness. And that all comes together through the perspective you have on the world, how much you trust yourself and God, your soul, um, and how much you love yourself.
Hmm. And
Because
I think
the
having,
bottom
and
line,
then I think too, like, and I'd love for you to address this because I haven't yet read your book, but I want to order it. Actually, I'm going to get it right away because I want to read it because my little girl needs to read it. All of us adults need to read the book because our little. But you know what I remember, Angela, and if you haven't, let's do series two in your book because I'd love to see it in your book if it's not there yet. Is I remember and I already shared with you my grandkids and even sent you their pictures. But
yeah,
I remember
that's
the one
adorable.
day that I had the children because their mom and dad went on a vacation for a week. And the one, like this, by the second night, the oldest one is the one that's the most sensitive, had crocodile tears, and she's in the bedroom at bedtime. And she starts crying, I miss mommy and daddy. And in an adult's typical response, this is what I see in the world, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. An adult's typical response to a child who's missing their parents is to say what? It's going to be okay. They'll be home
They're
soon.
there.
You don't have to cry,
Right.
right? Would you agree? Isn't that the atypical adult response to a child crying because they're missing their parents?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
So
you want to make them feel better, and so you dismiss the feelings.
so I sat there and I held her in my arms and I said, "Oh, it is so hard, isn't it, when we miss the people that we love? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to hold you. Just cry as much as you need, and I'll be here with you to witness your sadness and be with you." All of a sudden, for like just for a second, she was dumbfounded and stopped crying and said, "It's okay to be sad." And I said, "Oh, yes. It's so important to let your sadness out, and I'll be here to hold you and witness it and stay here as long as you need me." And parenting myself.
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
parenting myself and I didn't know it, and it was so impactful.
In a beautiful way, you are talking to your inner child
Mhm.
as well as your granddaughter,
Mhm.
and you were giving permission for feeling the feelings. That is probably the biggest lesson in my books. We have to feel our feelings in order for them to dissipate.
Mhm.
And if we don't, if we stuff them, if we say, don't cry, and the child is forced to just sit on that feeling, thoughts and feelings are energy, and the energy enters our cells. And so every time we stuff a feeling, we're making negative cellular changes in our bodies.
Mhm.
And so by when we can, all we have to do is three things: feel the feeling, acknowledge it. I'm feeling sad. Accept the feeling. So we feel it, we acknowledge it, and we accept it. It's okay for me to feel sad. That's
Mhm.
all we need to do, and the
Mhm.
feeling will dissipate.
And for parents out there, like when they get your book, because parents get this book and read it yourself. And when you read it, go to a quiet place and read it and take it in as though it's you as a child. But this is what I want to share too, because this is a lot of this stuff. Trust me, when I share this, Angela, with you in the audience, is newer stuff to me that I've learned just in the last like 8 years. And I'm 67 years old. So I've lived a long life on my journey of healing. It hasn't, 38 years I've been in recovery. Um, and so it doesn't, people just say, oh, you just recovered and that was it. No, I've been on a lifelong journey of healing. The other one that goes with your book that I think is so important is as you parents read this book and you go inside and learn about your own inner pain and struggles, and then you share this book with your child, please start opening your eyes and looking at your children or looking at your spouse or looking at others and noticing what they're doing, noticing how they sit, notice their expressions. Start to notice. We live in a world of so much disconnection, Angela, that how often do we really look at another human being and notice them?
That is such a beautiful, beautiful statement. Thank you for that. Because, yeah, one of my favorite songs is by Missio. It's called I See You. And it's all about I see you. You know, think about us walking down a busy city street. Do we really see the other people?
Mm-mm,
No. But
mm-mm,
everybody is a beautiful soul. Everybody deserves to be seen. And
mm-mm.
when we witness for each other in that way, we're seeing them. Really, it's a beautiful thing.
And how often, too, Angela, because this was our conversation we started today, when you said, Jill, hi, how are you? And the atypical statement we see, besides noticing, is do we really hear when someone says, hey, how are you? Well, do you want me to really tell you, or should I do my patting? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? And so, like, really, like, what would it be like, Angela, seriously? Because if you're writing these wonderful books, what would it be like in 2021 if A, we started to notice people,
Mm-hmm.
B, when we ask a question, we stop and listen, and that person actually answers the question honestly? And what was your words that you used about emotions, your three words again?
Oh, we feel, we acknowledge, and we accept.
Yeah, so what would it be like if we feel, we acknowledge, and we accept our emotions, we notice and we see others, and when we ask a question, we truly want to pause, stop, and listen to the person's answer? What would it be like? I mean, truly, would we all feel so disconnected, or will we start to feel this new energy arising of hope, health, and healing?
I I honor that suggestion. I believe that would be opening the door to heaven on earth.
Hmm. And we
Um,
and we do have heaven on earth. We just don't acknowledge we have heaven on earth.
True.
We wait for it in the afterlife, but God's already said in the Our Father.
God is within us.
Well, and he's
True.
already said, if you repeat the Our Father, he says, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. This kingdom come on earth as
As
it
it
is
is
in
in
heaven. So it's
heaven.
already on earth. His kingdom is on earth. We just don't pause to let it sink in. But I'd love to see your next two books. You like that? Two books is
Actually,
I
I have five written.
okay. So I'd like to see one that's I see you and I'm hearing you, and
Beautiful.
I'm pausing to listen. I'm pausing to listen. And that wouldn't that be good? I'm pausing to listen and I see you.
I love that.
I've
Um,
got you with assignments now because I want to read the books.
yeah.
Uh,
Actually, I'm writing book 5 now,
what
and
is
book
it called?
2. um, without giving anything away, it's called Princess Bella and the Dark Angel.
Mm.
So it deals with.
What are the other four? The first one
Mm,
I you said one that listed was let me go back here. It's called Bella Santini, The
mm-hmm.
Everlasting Change. So tell us, let's start with that one. Tell us what that one's about, a theme.
So, really, the theme of that, but there are several themes running through. There is a child abandonment, there is um, planned infanticide, there's bullying and non acceptance,
Hmm.
but all layered in the land of everlasting change, which is the Fae world, and the Fae are love. That's the energy that they bring. So the background of the story is that a portal had opened up that allowed darkness into the Fae world. And Bella is a human being who stumbles upon a fairy ceremony in a meadow, and she's arrested and brought to the fairy world for having intruded on their ceremony. Um, there's unrest in the fairy world, so they decide to send her to Yelly Moon School, a fairy school, and keep her safe there until they can figure out what's going on. Um, when she enters Yelly Moon School, she is not allowed to be a student until she passes some trials. And so, book one is really about the trials that she's involved with. Book two, some of the darkness is more revealed in the land, and it's called Bella Santini in the Troll War. And that book may be published within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So that's it's coming up soon. Um, book three, the land has been is temporarily restored back to a land of love, and Bella now knows more about her heritage, and she ends up going to the dragon's lair and is to choose a dragon protector. And so in book three, it's about the dragons going through trials to win her over, basically. Um, in book four, um, Bella is pushed into a portal by someone and brought back to Earth. And so she's trying to figure out she ends up on Earth 2 years before she left, and so there's a little bit of manipulation she has to do to not run into herself, basically. Um, and then in book five, it's the prelude to book six, basically. So it's once again delving into the dark energy, and in book six, I can't tell the ending of book six.
No, no. So now, are all of these now out for release, or is just the book one out for release?
Book one is available on Amazon.com, and on my website, angelalegh.com. When you click on the Bella Santini Chronicles link, for anyone who cannot afford to buy the book, there is a link that will allow you to download the book for free.
Okay, awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's beautiful. I love that. I can't wait to hear more about it. So,
And
it's
book.
it's kind of funny, Angela, because of the abuse in my childhood. Um, and I not saying this as a victim, but it was like really by 5 years old, when 5 and a half, when my parents divorced, and my dad was like your mother, who was the angelic one. When my dad
Mm-hmm.
had to leave because of the divorce, he was the one who would read us bedtime stories and kneel down and pray with us at night. And so when he left the home and we'd only see him on Sundays, the bedtime stories stopped. And I think I really do believe that it had a big effect on me for reading. And to this day, I've not been able to really sit down and ever read a book from cover to cover. I can read like a chapter, and then I lose my focus and I can't remember what I read. And then I start to go into chapter one and I got to read chapter two. I go
Oh,
into chapter two and have to read. So I have probably about 300 books, and I don't think I've ever finished one book except the ones that I could not put down were Frank Peretti's series called This Present Darkness, and
mm,
he had like three of them. And they were all about the principalities of light and darkness, where you had the angelic angels from
mm-hmm.
heaven with the
And the
demonic
dark
angels,
side.
and they were
Mm-hmm.
doing warfare together, and they
Mm-hmm.
were like fighting each other in a little town. You'd love those books. It's called This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. Really good
Nice.
stories. And those were the only ones. It's so weird that I literally could not put down for the life of me. And another one I could not put down, and unfortunately, I lent it to someone and I went to try to find it again, and they're out of print. They're out of print, but I think I found one or two that were on sale for like $40 because they are out of print. It was called The Beautiful Side of Evil. And it was only
Mm.
about 150 pages, and it was all about it looks good, it tastes good, it smells good. But is it really of God, or is it the principalities of darkness? It was really
Mm.
good. So your books fascinate me because I have this thing about liking to look at the light coming out of the darkness.
You're gonna love book five then. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Um,
I anxiously await them. I anxiously await them. So I'd love at this point to transition to a couple more, coming away from our childhood to fun things. So what's one, besides all this other amazing stuff you're doing, what's one fun fact about you?
oh my gosh, I can't. I can't go by a swing set without stopping to swing because it brings me so much joy, and and it's interesting because a year or so ago I was thinking about how we don't give ourselves permission to play in that way, because it's not adult, it's not acceptable. And so I ended up building an online course for adults to connect into their inner child and access that playfulness, that curiosity, the self trust, and self love. And I just released that course this week.
Well,
So,
definitely send me that link too, right when we hang up, so I can put that with it on the YouTube because I want that
um,
one. So for the audience, I had the privilege of interviewing Angela's fiance, Richard, last week, and they're getting married soon. And so I'm going to tell Richard, for your wedding present, he's got to build the most amazing swing set in your backyard. That's going to
I
be your
already thought
wedding
about
gift.
asking for one. Yeah.
Well, we'll have an amazing swing set and a big, huge weeping willow tree with one of those big tire swings, those tire swings.
Super fun.
And then
Yeah,
we'll and then on the porch we'll have to have Richard get you one of those swings, that the couple sit on and swing on the porch. So we'll get a swing for you and Richard to be old couple swinging, and then a swing set and a tire swing.
I love that so much.
That'll be your wedding gift. Oh my goodness. It's just so the other question is with all the censorship going on in the world today, craziness,
Mm.
craziness. If someone censored you and told you that you had to delete every single app on your cell phone and you could only keep two, which two apps would you insist on keeping?
Hmm. I think I could let go of every app. Um,
You can still have two. It's okay. It's okay not to be a minimalist. You can have two.
well, as I think about it, the social media connection apps, I are definitely the ones that I think about because this human interaction is so important to us, and that's why COVID has been so hard on kids and adults. And so I guess Clubhouse
Hmm.
and um,
And
it's
maybe your Amazon app so you could load your books.
I could do that through the web. I
Oh,
don't.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't need that on your cell phone. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. But I did want to. I meant to say earlier that one of the things in my books that I've done is add book club questions at the back of the book. And it says book club questions, but what they're really there for is to spark conversation between the parent and the child as they're reading the book.
Mm.
And when you talked about parents reading the book first and connecting into their own stories, I think it would be really valuable if they shared those stories with the child. We think that as a parent we have to appear invincible and fill this role of parent. But when we can be vulnerable and let the child know we understand how they feel because we've been through that, those conversations are gold.
Yeah.
And so
And
I,
the, and to
I
and to start a book club with you too, just to hear the responses would be cool. I guess we'll have to get you set up with a Facebook page that will be your book club Facebook page. So
I could do that. Wow, what a suggestion.
yeah,
Thank you.
join a private Facebook page for being able to share with each other as parents what you learned by reading this book. That would be a very intuitive Facebook page a Facebook group.
I do have my Facebook page, which is more or less devoted to either what I do on my website or my books. But yeah, I think I will create a group and open it up. Let people join. No
Yeah,
charge. This is just about us being human
yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah. That would be awesome. So
Yeah.
last but not least. God gave me the vision this year to create hope, health, and healing in the world, which I'm trying to manifest right now. So, with the word hope, the secular word of hope is to cherish a desire with anticipation, to want something to happen, to be true, hoping like for a promotion. Um, but in the Bible, it says, hope is the confident expectation of what God has promised, and its strength is in his faithfulness. What does hope mean to you for 2021?
Mm. Hope means that we are able to connect as human beings with love with everyone we communicate with the understanding that if they're mistreating us, it's because they have a hurt inside. And being able to step back and let go of our triggers, take a breath. I read this wonderful website yesterday. It was Dr. Tom somebody or other, and he talked about kids and bullying and how he teaches young girls to say tomato. So when someone is throwing name calling, you're such a, then in the mind of the young girl, they think tomato. And there's no charge to the word tomato. And words only have charge if we give it a charge.
Mhm.
So replacing these charged words that would trigger us with the word tomato allows the little girls to laugh and not internalize what the person is saying. I was so impressed by that. I want to contact him and ask if I can include that in the parents guide for the parents so that they can teach their kids.
Mm.
um, so I, over the next week or so, I'll be doing that. But yeah, hope is about us seeing, all of us seeing the divinity, the God light that is within each and every one of us in the
Mm.
people we deal with.
Yes. The second word is health.
Mhm.
Again, in the dictionary, health is defined as the physical, mental, and social well being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. But in biblical terms, there are 7 areas of the abundant life Christ refers to in John 10:10 that says you need to take care of them all to experience the biblical health, which is spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, financial, occupational, and social. Each area of your life is connected to all the others. So, what does health mean to you in 2021?
Mm. As you know, my thing is emotional. I'm very much on the emotional and spiritual end of things, and so when I think about my own life, I would say super healthy in those areas. And in my own life, there's a couple of areas that I can step up my game. And when we think about that, when we do it for ourselves, that's when it sticks.
Mm.
Because when, with your journey of addiction, if you were told to give it up for someone else, by someone else, it's not going to work. It's only when you choose yourself and you can step into that place of, for me, I want to do this.
Hmm. Thank you. And the last one is healing. um, it's in healing in the Bible. There, what does the biblical Bible say about healing? And it says, "Heal me, Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved. For you are the one I praise." And the people all tried to touch him because the power was coming from him and healing them all. And it says, "But I will restore you to health and heal your wounds, declares the Lord." What does healing mean to you in your personal life?
Mm. This is where um, and I firmly say, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, I believe in the power of them. But God placed, in my opinion, God placed within each of us a, a flame of God's love in our hearts. And when we can stoke that flame, recognize that flame within us, we can be more connected to Jesus and God. And so that to me is healing, by really allowing the flame in your heart to grow.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I keep having this vision that comes to me like a lot of heal my spirit, my mind, and my body today, God. Heal my spirit, my mind, and my body today, and bring me closer to you. And it's just been coming to me quite a bit this year of just really trying to heal that spirit and mind and body all combined together. And no matter what your, faith is, I think just healing is so impactful for us to have a wholesome life. And so I'd love now, excuse me for coughing, I'm going to show the audience your bio here. And this is Angela's website and her Facebook page. We're going to add some other links on to the YouTube channel as well that you'll be able to find her at and connect with her. So I've just been so honored to get to know you and adore you, and your fiance is amazing, and
Yes.
I really am blessed to have found both of you in my life and feel honored to be in community with you. I think it's just been a blessing. And so, in closing, I'd love for the rest of you to join in with us on March the 12th. It's from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 6:30 in the evening, Eastern Standard Time, for only $28. So please go online today and register. I'm going to have to bend over because it gets cut off, but my website, I'm going to bend down, is braveheartworkshops with an S.com. So if you go to that website, you can register today. We have the most amazing speakers who are going to be sharing their stories of hope, health, and healing in their lives so that it will help you to connect the dots in your life to bring more hope, health, and healing to you as well. Our world renowned Dr. Laura Wood is going to be our keynote speaker, and she'll be speaking on embodiment and how when we keep these stories stuck inside of us, they bring trauma and bad health to us. So she's really going to give you some inspiration of how to heal. And she's world renowned. She's worked in eating disorder treatment centers. She's a professor at Lesley University. And you'll get, if nothing else, sign up just so you could hear her talk for 1 hour, if nothing else. And you get the fully recorded version so you could listen to it at your leisure. So, don't not sign up because you're busy that day. Sign up anyway so you can get the recorded version. So we look forward to seeing you on March 12th. And Angela, I hope we can spend more time together as you continue your writing journey.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. You have such a divine light around you. It's a beautiful thing.
I may have a story to share the day of my event. That guy keeps telling me about that. So if you come to the event, you'll hear it. So we're going to end now, guys. Thanks again for joining me, and have a wonderful day, Angela.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too.
Bye now. Thanks for joining us on The Connection Show. Let's connect now. Let's restore, renew, and reconnect in community. Enhance connection in our online connection circles. It's a place to meet up, gather, and feel welcomed. To join us, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Click on the Books Podcast tab and then the Connection Circles drop-down. On the pop-up, join our Connection Circles Facebook group. Our circles meet from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Share story, topics, and laughter with and women. To learn more about Connection Circles, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Thanks for joining us on The Connection Show, and have a great day.